pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Salcha?
Here.
Mr. Lindemann?
Here.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Burry?
Here. Item D, approval of the minutes of listed, number 1 and 2. Need a motion for that, Mr. Lynn?
I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Smith. Any discussion, members of the board? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Burry?
Yes, item E, summary of current events. Number 1, are you going to do that, Ms. Cox?
No. She didn't leave me anything.
She didn't leave anything for you
No.
to do that? Governing board members, any report? Mr. Smith?
I do. I know we had the special meeting, but since our last regular meeting, we had the law seminar that we attended up in Phoenix. And there were a couple of very interesting breakout sessions that I attended that brought up some issues, and mostly it was they were concerning generative artificial intelligence and how they're being used. And they were sitting there, one of the things they were suggesting, they say, if you do not already have policies governing how that's to be used by the students and the teachers, we need to get on it. And that was one of the things I was going to either make a request or maybe see if the superintendent could put together a study group of knowledgeable people to start looking into ways that we could create a policy covering the beneficial and prohibitive uses of generative AI. And if you're not familiar with it, it's things like Chat GPT and so forth. And there's all kinds of ways that it can be used. And from what I understand, it is already being utilized probably by our teachers as well as by a good percentage of the students. You can go in there and type very generalized questions, and it will give you detailed answers or write entire reports on what you're looking at. From what I understand, a lot of the teachers will use it to kind of check some of the students' reports, and a lot of students may be using it to write some of their reports. And to what extent that needs to be some of the things that we need to look at and address. But there's a lot to this, and it's becoming more and more popular and more common throughout all of the school stuff. And I think we need to start looking and trying to come up with some kind of policies to list what's good, what's not, and so forth.
Was that was the ASBA conference?
Yes.
Well, were you there?
I was not.
Generally, when ASBA, especially the presenters, which are brought in by ASBA, when they're done, ASBA generally says, and we'll have a policy as soon as possible regarding that, because to be honest with you, that's where we get all our policies. Unless we modify them here locally and we rewrite them or edit or whatever. So I'm surprised they didn't have one. So we'll wait and see. I'm glad you brought that up, because we'll wait and see if you're going to see a bunch of policy advisories. Is it on this agenda, the policy advisory? There'll be for the next one.
Yes.
Right. You'll see a bunch that come from ASBA, and you'll see that the policies themselves, especially to be in compliance with the legislature, they'll have every policy that needs to be changed or adopted as a new policy. So they probably will have one for us. So that's interesting.
But if it doesn't, it may be something that we want to look at individually as
Right.
school. If nothing else, it will could affect disciplinary. A simplified answer is a student that's given a report assignment could go in and type what the teacher says, and this Chat GPT will write the entire report for him. Okay, so that could be plagiarism, but it's not his work. Or they might just take bits and pieces, or they might just take small excerpts. There needs to be some type of definition as to what the school district is going to define as cheating. How much usage is there and what's not? Also, some of the things that need to be addressed would be whether or not teachers, they could even inadvertently put student information, names, biographical data into these searches, and that becomes common knowledge for anybody who uses that nationwide. So that could cause problems with our existing policies. That's one of the things, I don't know that we really want to wait until, you know, the state decides, oh, well, yeah, that's an issue we should have done a while back, or we should have done something. I think we need to start looking, at least making some controls for our own district.
We'll probably have a special meeting next week because we're gonna have some budgetary considerations, but in the meantime, you look into that and see, because there's no sense in us reinventing the wheel. Because when we get something from ASBA, number one, we know that it's legislatively researched by the legal team at ASBA, and when they give it to us, that we know that it's gonna be, number one, it's gonna be legal. That's always the important thing. So we'll have staff, and then hopefully by the special meeting we have next week sometime, you'll have an answer. And then if
And
not, then we'll,
The main thing on the study group that I was thinking about is at least start identifying areas that we need to
Yeah.
make sure that they address. You know, and then that way, even if, in whatever policies come down through ASBA, you know, we may need to, like you mentioned, tweak it a little bit
Yeah.
specifically for us, but,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, great. Well, thank you for that. Ms. Alchow?
I attended the law conference as well, and in one of the breakout sessions, I attended one on weapons in the high school, or the schools, and how school districts are looking at them now, you know, looking at long-term suspension versus expulsion, et cetera. And one of the things that was brought very clearly to mind was that, it said it is the law, or it is policy, that every school district is supposed to have an alternative school. And that's what we were told. I think
Yes.
Ms. Walker was in the session that I was in, and so was Mr. Smith. And that just was kind of like ding, you know, it kind of hit a little bell there. I thought, well, I also attended the Legislative Committee Political Agenda Conference, and it was a lot nicer this year. It seems like nobody was really as angry as they were the previous year, and there weren't any, like, what I would call verbal throwdowns that I saw last year. People talked, there was a lot more respect, but also the way it was started with the president of ASBA, he basically kind of set it up where, you know, we're going to play nice. We're not going to drag this out. We're going to play nice. If you can't play nice, you may be escorted from the room, which was nice. One of the things that, most of the things passed, little changes, you know, for the political agenda to be worked on, you know. One of the things that was really brought up was that the need for more financial transparency from public, private, charter homeschoolers, and seeking recovery of improperly received or spent funds. And that is not always brought to the public's attention. And that was one of the main things that they want to work towards this year with our legislature.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yeah, I also attended the law conference, and along with this, I'm wondering if the college hasn't already developed some policies according to that AI. And I'd like to at least include them in the research to look at what's going on. And then also, I believe that it's homecoming parade this Thursday.
Yes.
And so, congratulations to all the float builders, and I'll be up on the terrace, you know, overseeing. So last time I did that, Danny Ortega threw a melted ball at me and almost got me. But that was a few years ago.
Get ready to
Thank you.
catch, Mitch. Get ready to catch.
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Ramos?
Yes, well, my colleagues pretty much covered the majority. Mitch and I always stick together.
go ahead, but I was telling Mitch, either it's us getting old or thing, but a lot of times we've already heard, we say, I thought they were gonna bring something new in, and it's still basically the same, but it's kinda hard for us to catch what's new, what's gonna be presented new, because we've been there, we know it, and, but without these, in my opinion, somebody that doesn't have as much education as the majority of the board members here, for me has been a positive, because this is where I've learned the little bit that I know and I bring to the table here. And I'm just glad to be able to help when I can.
Very good, thank you. And then, as far as your legislative council, as you said, they were very nice.
Everybody behaved.
Did,
They did. Every once in a while, somebody might get on a little soapbox and a little tirade, but then they walked away from the mic and sat down and, drank their water. And then we took a vote, and I didn't really see that type of behavior really swayed votes. But last year, it was like, there were some topics that perhaps people, that were discussed or people's opinions were given that lasted 30 to 45 minutes, per item. It was a long day last year, but I felt like things moved along better, and there was conversation, and that was good, instead of
Okay, good.
tirading.
Before we get to the real important report by Mr. Luna, my report is that my television time is always very good, except that when it gets disrupted by the state superintendent of public instruction advocating and propagandizing for the charter schools. He's got two announcements on there, and I think they're even letting him have as a PSA. I don't know why, but the first one is he's got $10 million to publicize the charter schools and some special programs that they offer. It's number one. Number two, that he very succinctly says the schools in Arizona, the public schools are great. However, I want to let you know that if you're not happy with the public school, then you should really decide and consider charter schools. Now, here's a man that is the state superintendent of public instruction, that is an ex officio member of the State Board of Education. He's an ex officio member of the Board of Regents. He sits on the charter school board, and he's the state superintendent of public instruction, and he advocates for charter schools. That's mind-boggling to me. Anyway, we're going to get the better reports. We're going to get the better reports here with Mr. Luna. And then also, when you finish, I know you need to be somewhere much more important than this, so as soon as you finish your report, then feel free to leave. Okay, thanks, Victor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Mr. President Brain, not Superintendent Samaniego. Members of the board, DUSD faculty and staff, and members of the public. The activity report at DHS and DUSD schools for the month of October is as follows. We have some amazing news to share about our students and staff at DHS. Congratulations to Ms. Giselle Romero. She received the Arizona Award for Teaching Financial Literacy, presented by Arizona State Treasurer Kimberly Yee. It's homecoming week this week. Student Council has worked diligently and is excited to invite you all to attend our week-long activities, especially the parade followed by the bonfire on Thursday and the homecoming tailgate preceding the game on Friday. This year's homecoming dedicatee is Mr. Gilbert Rojas. Congratulations to him for his dedication to our school for over 30 years. As for what is going on in our district, we will have fall break for all schools the week of October 9th through the 13th. At Douglas High School, this year's homecoming theme is Under the Stars, and the following are the festivities. Yesterday, Monday, the dress-up day was Space Jam. We also had a movie night later on that day with a $1 admission. Today, the theme was Dress as a Star, and we also have a volleyball game going on right now. Tomorrow, Wednesday, the theme is Cowboys versus Aliens, followed by a carnival. Thursday, the theme is Iconic Space Duo, followed by our parade and bonfire. And finally, Friday, we have Bulldog Colors of the Galaxy, where we will be having our pep rally, our football game, and our homecoming royalty. October 19th is the college application campaign. October 20th is ASVAB testing. October 26th is PSAT testing. October 28th is ACT national testing. And that is all for Douglas High School. At Rayburn Middle School, August 4th will be the school dance from 6 to 8 p.m. They will also be hosting their annual haunted house on Wednesday, October 25th from 6 to 8 p.m. At Paul Hubert Middle School, ELD night will be from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. October 3rd. Folklorical performance October 6th starting at 7:30 p.m. Location at ICC. At Clausen Elementary School, the week of October 23rd, Red Ribbon Week will be celebrated. On October 31st, they will be having their annual Trunk or Treat event. And on November 21st, they will have their annual Dia de los Muertos event. At Stevenson Elementary School, Stevenson will have their book fair October 2nd through the 6th. They will be celebrating Red Ribbon Week starting on Monday, October 23rd through Friday, October 27th. And they will also be celebrating their Trunk or Treat event on Tuesday, October 31st. At Joe Carlson Elementary School, Joe Carlson will have their end of quarter celebration this Thursday, October 5th. They will also have their book for October 16th to the 20th, and we'll be celebrating Red Ribbon Week beginning the week of October 23rd. At Sarah Marley Elementary School, they will be having their first annual Fall Festival on Friday, October 6th. They'll be celebrating Red Ribbon Week from October 23rd to the 27th, and they will also be having their annual Trunk or Treat event on October 31st. And finally, at Ferris Elementary School, parent-teacher conferences for report cards will be on Wednesday, October 25th. Our awards assembly for quarter one will be on Friday, 27th. And finally, Red Ribbon Spirit activities and Spirit Days will be held on the week of October 23rd.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, go ahead and take off if you need to go, no problem.
Thank
All
you so
right,
much.
Mr. Soto.
Good evening, Mr. President, Mr. Board members. I have my monthly budget balance report, and this is for the month of September, of course. One of the things before we get into more details about that, typically the district does a budget review in the month of December, of course, to reflect enrollment. And as all you know, unfortunately, we keep losing kids. That's gonna, keep affecting us big time. I know Mrs. Cox is gonna go over the numbers on enrollment, but again, once I do the revision, I have to reflect the number of kids we have, which is gonna decrease our budget a little bit. I don't have an exact number at this point, but it's gonna be more than $500,000 on that ballpark. It's a little concerning, of course, especially when we start looking at next year's budget and the enrollment. Of course, enrollment means revenue for the district. So, of course, I'll keep you informed and on the loop. Of course, when I do the revision, I'll give you the exact difference on what we adopted and what we're gonna revise the budget. I don't know if you have specific questions on this report, which is, again, the balances and that we have at this point. And once we do the revision, of course, they're gonna change again. Not all of the employees are fully encumbered, and the only reason why is because we still have some teachers that haven't started working because of the visa situations, but we're hoping that those are gonna be finalized soon. Specific questions?
Okay, members of the board, any questions regarding the budget or anything that's associated
I
with
just
it?
wanted to ask you, in regards with the budget, the students that we're losing to either the migrant students or students that are going to the charter schools and so forth. That situation, looking into that and seeing, do you feel that we still may lose more students on down the line this year? Or we've lost what?
We've lost quite a bit of students. We've lost 314. this year. So most of them, and I will give you a little report on that after Mr. Soto finishes, but most of them, it's because they're moving out of town due to looking for work, jobs.
And in the past, we will typically see that decrease at the beginning of the school year, of course. Most of the time, they're registered but never showed up, and then we have the 10-day drops. But then in this case, which is rare, we keep losing and losing because people are moving out of town. I don't think that we have a lot of people just going to the charter schools or here locally. But again, she's going to give you more detail on that. On a good note, the minimum wage was approved, and we're good. I don't have to make an adjustment in January like I've been doing in the past 2 years. So we're a little ahead of the game. The minimum wage is going to be approved at $14.35, and here in the district we have it at $14.40. So I don't have to make any adjustments this year. If you remember, some time ago, also the state was proposing the $15 an hour minimum wage for this coming year. But again, there's no talk about it, luckily, and so we don't have to make that huge adjustment. But I don't know if that's going to come back to the table on a conversation. So for now, we're good at this point on that aspect.
Mr. Ramos.
Thank you.
Ms. Salch, any questions on the budget?
None on the budget.
Mr. Smith,
No.
comment? Mr. Linden? Talk about that revision that normally comes up in December.
Correct.
Talk about, so that the board understands what that entails as far as when you revise it, what significance and what impact the loss of those students have on that?
Of course, enrollment it's revenue, and it depends on what grade those kids are. Then it's the impact. The high school kids are worth more than the elementary, if you want to put it that way. But again, what this basically means is I created and we adopted a budget on a certain number of students, projected enrollment, that at least keeping the same number of students we had the previous year. But again, with all these changes, now we have to adjust it and decrease our budget, and hopefully not losing more students in the remaining of the year. Because if not, then we have to have another revision anyways the following year, probably around March or April, to again reflect the enrollment. Can be more, can be less. We don't know that yet, but the big impact is that. I believe that we should be okay for the remaining of this school year. But what impact is going to create for the following year in terms of how much can we give for raises for both certified and classified and all of those things, of course, we're going to have to start talking about. Typically, we start doing that in February, March, when we have projected numbers. So that's the main thing. It's the following and upcoming year. Again, I'm hoping that we don't lose that many more students this year. That is going to impact the budget for this school year.
Well, members of the board, any questions or comments on that? You said a key word there. You talked about the impact on raises. Now, you know that we've talked about as a board
Correct.
a threshold, right? So when you look at all your encumbrances of what you have this year and your present revenues and balances, do you forget about that threshold right now, but do you have any problem with sustainability of all the encumbrances you have this year and expected?
No, that's what I said. I mean, I don't see any problems for this current school year.
Okay, so
It's just
then,
for the projections.
okay, so once you said that, and we wanted to make sure the board understands that, so when we get to talking about salaries, and it's gonna be coming up, and you know what the board has kind of implied, what we'd
Correct.
like to look at, you said would be all right this year, right? You're more concerned about next year.
Correct.
All right, just keep that in mind. All right, members of the board, anything else regarding the budget? The times are not good financially, especially we keep losing students. So, Anyway, all right, let's just move on to Denise, and, if you don't mind, Ms. Cox, the human resource report.
Okay, so our enrollment in September was at 3,774. However, our ADM, and I spoke of this last month, our ADM for September was, or currently is 3,491. So that is what the budget is based on, that number, not the total enrollment. In September, we enrolled 63 new students. However, we lost 41 students. Okay, and so at the last board meeting, we talked about the reasons why. And so we did create a survey, have been contacting the parents that have left. There are 314 students that have left the district. And Mrs. Samaniego will provide a written report to the board once she returns. But out of the 314 students that have left the district, we have 120 surveys that were returned to us that we spoke to parents. And so the question I'm going to give you information on for today is why? Why are they leaving the district? So out of the 120 surveys that we received, 51 students moved out of town. 39 reported family concerns. So other things that were happening within the family that they had to withdraw from the district. 12 students went to other schools in town, so either Loretto or Cass or Liberty. 7 students are attending online school, so they didn't feel that the high school was providing what their child needed, so they went to online school. 5 surveys reported bullying concerns. 4 reported that they left due to hours in the school day. So because other schools have extended childcare, they can keep their kids later, they opted to go that route. And that was only 4 that were reported. 1 reported that they received a voucher, and because of the voucher, they left. And then 1 was a no response. And so Mrs. Samaniego will give a written report to you. There were 8 questions that were asked. And so I just wanted to share this information with you. And so we continue to call. When students leave, we give the survey to the parents right away. So we're always collecting the data to see what
Ms.
it is.
Salchow, I think you're the one that specifically asked for that information. Do you have
And
any
I really
questions or-
appreciate you following up on that and asking why. Is there something that our school district is not offering that another, like a local school, whether it be Loretto or Liberty or Cass, doesn't matter where they are, online schools, I'm glad that you followed up and found that parents felt like there were some things that they felt like they needed their child to have.
Yes.
So I really, really am appreciative of it. 314 students, that's the equivalent to one of our elementaries or several of our elementary schools' enrollment.
Yes.
Now, granted, 300 students are not missing from an elementary school. It's spread out through the whole district.
Right.
But that's a school.
Yes.
And then it makes me worry about next year
Yes.
and about employees and the need for staff. And it's a huge snowball. I know that there was really no way to prevent, because you can't prevent people from moving out of town. But, and I appreciate that I've heard that, there's been more advertisement for enrollment in the district. Before school started, I was leaving Walmart, and I happened just to look, and there's a little sign across the street from Walmart, Double Adobe is enrolling. And I didn't see anything that said, get the bang for your buck, come to the district. We are your public. We are,
Yes.
we can give you all these wonderful things, which we can.
Yes.
And we have amazing programs in our district. So this is really, last month, when you said that, enrollment was down, and you gave the numbers, and I was sitting over here, doing my math, I nearly fell off my chair because it was such a shock. I could understand 50, maybe 100, maybe. But that was just, that took my breath away.
Yes. Yes. So we're very concerned
Good.
because it does impact financial you know, financial things here in the district, programs, employees. So we're very concerned about it. So,
Mr. Smith, any questions or comments regarding that report?
There was one of the statistics that Ms. Cox brought up where you said there were 39 students that they did not enroll because of family matters
Yes.
for whatever reason. They still have to go someplace, correct?
yes. Yes.
They decided not to go to the district, but does that mean those are ones that are lost to other schools, or?
So the parents didn't specify, but I can share that some of those things that were reported were, you know, teenage pregnancies, things of that matter, you know, issues in the home life that prevent them from staying in the district.
Okay.
Sometimes, and I think she'll verify it, that many times the ones, that specific category, parents just keep them home to help with the finances and helping out with maybe a disabled family member.
Right.
Or something like that, and if they're within the parameters of the law, of course, we don't know the reason.
Sure.
And we don't have, anyway, those are other factors that
Yes.
are involved in
Could
that
be.
personal. Do you have anything else, Mr. Smith? Go ahead.
You know, and because we were discussing the finances and everything, and there was one of the things, I don't know all the information, Mr. Lindeman may have a little bit more, but one of the things that I have been hearing, as they move forward and they're building a new port of entry and planning some businesses and stuff like that going in through there, from what I understood, that's going to be placed in the Bisbee district. So any funds that they get,
Wow.
we won't be privy to, even though it's going to be a Douglas port of entry.
Well, well,
As-
the Douglas schools, when the Forest School District was abolished, it was called Forest School District. It encompassed Paulsper and anything from west of the college all the way to Bisbee. And the Forest District went between that area, just past the college and all the way to the city limits of Bisbee. Bisbee beat the Douglas schools to the punch, and they got that in their district. They did it by voting and all those things. They were way ahead of us on that. So yes, it is in the Bisbee district, and they will get the revenues for whatever taxation is there. Did you have anything else, Mr. Smith?
No,
Ms. Alchow, how about you, Mr. Lindman?
No, that's fine.
Regarding that, any one of those two?
Yeah,
reports.
no, that's fine. Thank you for putting that together.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes, have you ever, just out of curiosity, talked to other districts like Nogales and see if they're having the same situation as we are?
So, yes, so I have been in contact with other districts, and across Cochise County, even into Tucson, they're having the same issues with enrollment. It's very interesting, but even TUSD is having the same issues with losing enrollment.
During the pandemic, did we see a large rise in our enrollment
No.
with people moving here to live with their families because perhaps they didn't have employment or a place to live?
So actually, I think we saw the enrollment before COVID hit, with people moving into Douglas because family members may have been in Mexico, and so we did see an increase in enrollment prior to COVID, and then I think COVID just hurt us.
Members of the board, any further discussion regarding the HR report or the budget? Okay, thank you for that. We'll move on. We have a couple of people who want to address the board. The first one is Dr. Christine Gomez, and that's regarding a Rotary donation. Dr. Gomez.
Yearly, the Douglas Rotary Club donates dictionaries to all the third graders in the Douglas area. And so our donation this year is for 1,188. It's a total of 432 dictionaries. Year to date, Rotary's history is 6,144 dictionaries to date. So it's significant. I get thank yous from the teachers, and some of them even remember getting the dictionaries themselves as third graders. So hopefully, I hope people still need dictionaries. I think the teachers say they do at that age, so we're happy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys generally, it's not always the same thing that you make donations on. It's always varies. Sometimes you do dictionaries, sometimes you do other things, right? Just whatever.
Yearly, it's dictionaries and then other things.
Okay, good, thank you. And then next, we have Mr. Duarte wants to address the board.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, board members, and members of the public. I'm Jesus Chuy Duarte, and today I'm going to talk about a little bit about what's going on with some athletic trips that were canceled. And the first thing that comes to mind, because there were a lot of people that called me up, but retribution comes to the word, and I guess they were afraid to come and speak up and a little bit timid about addressing our elected leaders. On Saturday, September 23rd, I was up in Tucson. That was a fair weekend. I was coaching our travel baseball team, and my phone was just ringing off the hook. People were upset calling me because there was a scheduled swim meet that was supposed to take place at the U of A. Some 27 of our athletes were supposed to go. They showed up 5 in the morning at the gym, and there was never transportation for them. They were not communicated that they were not going to go. Parents were upset. They weren't told. I know we're having issues, but I give credit because I did hear that at least Mrs. Seville took the kids to McDonald's after that, try to make up for it. But this was an opportunity to swim at the U of A. Some of them had a chance to maybe classify for state. And these kids were taking that opportunity. And this was on our schedule. It's there, it's printed for them. And parents at the end, they were asking me, what do we do? Contact our board members. Contact the principal, talk to them, you know. Some of them were supposed to be here. They decided not to show up. Then we get to September 27th. There's a golf match in Marana. Coach travels, takes his players up there, shows up. Nobody's at the golf course. Calls. He was never told that it was canceled because they were reseeding the golf course. And our athletic director just didn't read his emails. So they had to travel. He then took it out of his budget, whatever he had, to feed these kids, the 7 kids that he travels with. So something's going on. I know we're having issues with transportation, but for them to have to still make that trip because our AD didn't read an email and they traveled like that, something's not right at that level. And then we're hearing, you know, our defending state champs, our DHS Spirit line, not being able to also travel to their football games. Part of them being at the football games prepares them for that competition that they have to be at. I know they do here, they perform here, and they're doing well, but they also need to be out there practicing. And I know we're having some trouble with bus drivers and some trouble with that. But, you know, if we're losing students because they're missing out on these types of opportunities, what's going to happen with our clubs? You know, DECA has to go to a conference, HOSA, Skills USA, and all of a sudden some of these students are also not going to get to travel. I think we need to look at that. We really need to look at that we offer the same opportunities to our kids that they're getting somewhere else. But, you know, just talking with people, and I talk with a lot of coaches, we gotta look at our leadership in the athletic department, because there's not a lot of confidence in what's happening there. And we're just starting. We still have our winter season, and we have our spring seasons coming up, so we gotta look at that. I thank you for your time, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
That's a lot of important information. Of course, you know, the board can't discuss that. However, the board did hear what you said, but the administration, more importantly, heard what you said. And I'm sure that there'll be some active inquiries made about why. I'm just gonna make a comment, no discussion, that I know that the high school, especially the administration, is very supportive of athletics. And I know that they would always go the extra mile to ensure that our kids participated. So I would just say from me, with no discussion, no dialogue, that there's gotta be some extenuating circumstances as to why that happened. And I'm sure that they will be anxious to explain it to the administration when that time comes. And then I think the board probably would like to hear back from the administration regarding that, because like I said, that was a lot of, to be honest with you, a lot of good information. It was kind of, took me aback a little bit about some of the things you said. And of course, the comment regarding personnel, we're not gonna get into that at all at this level now. So anyway, administration, especially Denise, you heard what was said there, if you look into that. And again, I'm gonna say that there's gotta be some extenuating circumstances if there was any negativity involved in that, or if it was, let's say, injurious to our students or athletes, because I know that high school administration, very supportive of athletics. And so, thank you for the report, and thank you for addressing the board. All right, we don't have anybody else since you have those, and I know you don't want me to throw these away. So, we'll get on now to item number 2, consent agenda. 2A, approval of the expense voucher reports. Number 1, and through the expense vouchers listed in the student activity vouchers and the payroll voucher. Mr. Lindeman,
I move to approve the payroll and expensing vouchers and reports 1, 2, and 3.
is there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Salchow. Any discussion, administration, members of the board? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Selcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes, item 3, discussion information on the Douglas High School construction update. Mr. Soto, you're gonna do that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Still, as the board knows, I mean, there was that devastating incident that happened with on Building V. There's been a lot of remediation work done. They're actually doing pretty well on that aspect. Still waiting on the certificate of occupancy for Building R, which is the cafeteria. As you remember, the issue with the mop sink in the cafeteria, that has been an issue with the city, and that's why they're not issuing the certificate of occupancy. And the ADA access. I can tell you, we had a meeting today. That was scheduled to be done during fall break, but now because of the city is just waiting for those things to happen to issue the C of O. They're starting. They started today with the mop sink and also with the RAM. The RAM has been a few days already that they're on that project. They're scheduling to finish it by the end of fall break, worst case scenario. They're still moving along with all the other buildings. They are probably saying that by the time that the Building V remediation and all of that, replacing those walls, The other two buildings are gonna be pretty close to completion. They gave me a kind of like a schedule, that of course, every time we meet, something happens or whatever, then it's reflected on the schedule here. There's most of the stuff, it's being planned to be done soon, within these days and within, fall break in mind. So they're still shooting for hopefully mid-November or by the end of November to be done with everything. And I know we've been here before and we've heard that they'll be done soon. But like I said, lately, there's been a lot of activity there, especially on that building V. And there's still some little issues on building R, especially with that mop sink, and the access, the ADA access. Again, once those things are done, they'll contact the city again. Those are the two things that they're waiting to be done in that building to issue the certificate of occupancy, and then we'll bring you back to report on that. So I don't know if you have a specific questions. They've been working on the roofs. It hasn't rained, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but.
Did you say that they're shooting for November now? November?
Right.
They're just a year late, right? They meant 24 instead of 23 when they originally said.
Correct.
So if
13
they're
months.
shooting for November, then they're acknowledging that they're one whole year past.
Behind.
What the original deadline was, right?
Correct.
Members of the board, I'm not gonna say anything. Members of the board, Mr. Smith.
Unfortunately, I have a lot to say.
Go ahead.
Obviously, we had the special meeting on the construction just a few weeks ago, and since then, I also read the update from the superintendent that the public is not able to be aware of, but to me, it seemed like from the update that I saw from the superintendent, exactly the opposite of what we voted on and decided here at the board meeting, at that special board meeting, is what took place. I know we had voted to move the old equipment from the old cafeteria back to, or from the new cafeteria back to the old cafeteria. From what I understand, that's no longer happening. We voted on, buying new equipment for the new cafeteria. Was that done? I don't know.
That's in the process.
That's in
correct.
the process of being done. So once the new equipment comes, where is that going?
So the recommendation from the company was
Which company?
from the contractor, Adolfson and Peterson, since they had already completed as planned, as according to the plans from the architect, with the existing equipment, that if we would have decided to move all of those items now, that they wouldn't be responsible to bring everything back or to re-inspect everything back again.
So the contractor, the person we hired, is dictating what we're going to do and how we're going to do our equipment?
Not the contractor.
Because that's what he just said. They were sitting there. And my issue with that is, it's not that the superintendent didn't follow our directions. I'm not blaming her. I'm sitting there saying that there was obviously meetings that took place. The superintendent in her update said that. And from what it sounded like, it was on the advice of the architect. He's not here, so it's tough for me to, address it to him in person. But I have questions. Did he ever bring up the term change order? Have any of you guys heard that have sat in any of the meetings? Does
I
the
don't think
board
no,
know what a
because-
change order is?
No, because in the contract, by
Actually,
board edict, we acknowledged that there would be change orders, however, that he would be in charge, working with the architect, and so that they didn't have to bring every single change order to us.
I understand that. But basically, when we said that we wanted to move that equipment, buy new, we were making a change order. And it sounds like the architect because it was obvious during the meeting, he did not agree with that decision. He was the one sitting there, well, this equipment's on its last legs. He didn't agree with it, and so he advised what he wanted to do over what we wanted to do. And also, I'm gonna bet that the term construction change directive never came into play. Those are both what's considered construction 101 law. Okay? A construction change directive is basically where the owners of the property direct that this stuff will be done, and the builders have to do it, and then what they will get paid for that change will be decided at a later time. Obviously, that's not something that the architect brought into play. He was advising what he wanted done in contrast to what the board decided that day. And frankly, after reading that, I was not very pleased with what I saw, because it seemed like they pretty much made our decisions irrelevant. And that's my opinion right now, but.
Well, good. I'm glad you brought all that up, because for clarification, I think in that very long discussion we had, when we made all of the qualifications that we said regarding what was going to be done and what we voted on, that there would be discretion, that if something were to happen during that interim, that the administration had the discretion to make those administrative decisions if it was in the best interest of the district.
I agree with that, and that's why I said, I'm not blaming the superintendent. It's
okay,
not
I
her.
thought you were
What
implying
my
that.
whole thing is, that the architect, because she was following the guidance of the architect, is not working in our best interest as he is supposed to be doing. And that is my main statement. The architect is not bringing up options. He's making decisions on what he prefers over what we prefer. And frankly, he is not addressing our best interest. That is my main concern right there.
I wish the architect were here.
I do too.
Because I'm gonna get into it a little bit, because one of the things that has always been important to me were change orders, as a matter of fact. And at the beginning of this whole fiasco, we had said, when we discussed the contract, that all change orders, so that, like I said, we didn't get piecemeal, one little bit, that we allowed him to work with the architect and do the change orders. So that authority was vested in him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the comment regarding the architect having this district's best interest at heart, if he were sitting here, I'd say it too. I agree with that, and I think I've told him that. We're looking, since we're on this conversation, we're looking at 1 year hence, right? 1 year. According to what he said, now is the target date. And I know I facetiously said, well, did he mean 2023 or 2024? But Mr. Smith, I want to tell you that in our responsibilities in the oversight of this whole construction, which has been very, very minimal, because we don't meet that often and we don't get that involved in all of that stuff's investigating authority. But I want you to know that that wasn't idle talk when I was talking to them about liquidated damages, because we're looking at $750 a day that's built into that contract that they try to refute to me every time I ask them about it, him and Alan, because they don't want to address it. And you know why they don't want to address it is because the architect is responsible for determining whether there is any liquidated damages. And he doesn't want to go out on the limb and tell us that there is, because once he gives us the okay, then that's when the litigation or the legal process gets put in motion. Okay, I'm not gonna get into a whole lot about that, but the fact that you mentioned that he doesn't have our best interest at heart, that's your perception now on the other. But I do wanna say, and objectively speaking, and not in defense of anybody, that this board did give the administration the discretion to do whatever they felt was in the best interest of the district regarding that move in the kitchen, all right, in the ovens. So if she exercised that authority, then she was well within her parameters of doing that.
I agree with that,
Okay.
and that's what I said. This is not something that I perceive that Ms. Samaniego acted inappropriately. That is not at all what I was wanting. My whole purpose was exactly what I said, that she is acting on the direction of that architect. And those two terms that I brought up, a change order. Change order is just simply a change in what we want done, and they negotiate the cost of doing that with the builder. That's a very simple thing. The construction change directive is the same thing as when no agreement can be reached or has been reached with the builder, they are required to perform that directive, and then the architect actually works on trying to come up with what the best price to cover those changes would be. Those are very simple terms. The fact, and as I said, that's construction 101. The fact that he did not bring that up or even give those options, in my opinion, is a direct show that he is not working towards the best interest, because he did not provide those options to the superintendent for them to even be considered.
Well, for the sake of discussion, and it's important, that's the reason it's on the agenda, because so that we can be well informed. A change order, generally, in my involvement in all the construction I've ever been involved in, and not only here, but other places that I've been involved in, a change order has to do with a material change in the construction itself. If you change the color of the paint, or you decide you want a different floor, or you say you want tile, and then suddenly that's figured into the total amount of the contract, then you say, no, we're gonna go with carpet. Those are change orders to me. Things like mechanical things, like moving desks and moving those things, to me, is not a change order, all right? And I just wanna say that because that's my perception. all right?
If the builder was contracted to move that equipment, and were they contracted to move the equipment into?
No,
like,
no.
Was there was a different contractor, somebody else moved that equipment in there?
Oh, when originally was moved from,
The ovens.
yeah, from the old kitchen to the
Yeah.
new one, yeah, it was them.
It was the
But that's
builders.
what that was.
It was the builders. Okay, so they performed that. The fact that we wanted it moved back, that's a change order. And it obviously would cost again, but it's a negotiated price that we would work out with the builder to move it back. It's that simple.
Well, I think that the best way to summarize this thing is that to have the architect here at the next meeting. We're gonna have a special board meeting sometime next week. And you can ask Rob to be here, and the superintendent will be here, and then they can administratively clear those things up themselves. I'm not gonna sit in proxy of the architect, and I'm not gonna speak on his behalf or anybody. But as some of those technical definitions need to be explained, like that thing on a change order. To me, what you're saying is not a change order. That is an agreement that's made to do something mechanical, like you're gonna move, would you move that over here, move that? Change orders to me, and from what I know, are substantive type things, materialistic type things. Those are change orders. All right, so go ahead, Mr. Smith. I don't want to cut you off.
No, that's,
But,
I've pretty much made my statement on there.
okay, no, exactly, and I appreciate it. All right. Did you have anything regarding the construction?
Yes, I do. The equipment that was damaged with the rain and the water damage, when will that be replaced?
That's in the process. Also, we already contacted the trust. As you remember, we paid an additional amount to have the furniture and whatever equipment we have in there insured. So we already submitted the list of the BenQs, the electronic TVs that were damaged. So that's in the process, and we're gonna get those replaced.
Do they take long to get?
I don't think so, because it depends on the availability, obviously. But the vendor's been pretty good in getting those to us.
I was just concerned about starting, if we can get occupancy, if they are actually finished in November, that, the teachers probably wouldn't move in, but, I want the students to have what they need.
Right.
And the teachers to have the means to instruct them.
Correct.
So,
I think when that determination is made by the administration and the high school principal, I think they're in very close contact on what the mechanics are and what you guys are doing. I think that was something that was also in that motion that, in the discussion, that whenever the administration felt that if they felt it was feasible to move in, they could do it. I mean, do whatever they want, and I know Melissa would have been involved in that too. All right?
okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Mitch?
I just want to say that when all is said and done, I hope that we have new equipment in the kitchen, because it'll be a new kitchen, and we deserve all that. So I hope that all shakes out to our benefit. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask Cesar, I thought my understanding was that the construction company was going to pay for those damages with our equipment,
They have built-in insurance,
but it's their insurance.
Right.
Okay.
right?
Yeah, but it's not through their insurance, it's our insurance.
Why?
They
This
don't
is our
have, they don't
equipment.
have construction insurance?
Yes, they do, but those are items that were not part of the plan of the construction or for them to install. So that's why they were not covered with their insurance.
So they'll only cover like the drywall and
Correct.
wiring or anything
Yeah.
that was damaged,
Correct.
but not,
Okay, so that,
Correct.
okay.
So again, we pay that
So
additional
it's their
amount
fault.
to ensure the furniture that we purchase for the cafeteria and those TVs.
Okay, any further discussion, members of the board? This construction is causing us a little bit of consternation, and, no, seriously, I mean,
Yeah, I don't like
the board's been very, very patient. And, but the ramifications is, it's causing all of this disruption, not only in the school, whatever disruption it's gonna cause up there, or has or will. The discussion is difficult. Item number 3B, discussion action on the approval of certified hires, Ms. Cox.
As presented, it is after-school program and substitutes.
Entertain a motion to
I
approve.
move to approve the certified hires.
Motion by Mr. Lindeman, second
Second.
by Mr. Smith. Any discussion regarding the approval of the certified hires? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
yes,
Mr. Burry?
Yes, item C, discussion, action on the approval of classified hires. Mr., do you have anything you want to add or clarify?
No,
As presented?
as presented.
Mr. Lindeman,
I move to approve the classified hires.
is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mrs. Salchow. Members of the board, discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
yes.
Mr. Burry?
Yes, item D, discussion action on the approval of classified resignation and retirement. Ms. Cox.
As presented, and all except the first one are rehirable.
Oh, okay, so so the resignation is one a part, you've got them both together, and the retirements, you want both of those approved at the same time?
Yes.
Let's get it on the floor.
I move to approve the classified resignations and retirement with the exception of the first bullet point.
Is there a second?
second.
By Ms. Salchow. Okay, Ms. Cox, for clarification.
Okay, so it is instructional or support staff that is resigning. The last one is the retirement. Mr. Berrazas, he was a custodian and is retiring effective October 31st. And
Okay.
they're all rehirable, except we would like to say that the first one is not rehirable.
Okay, and I was in on it, so you can blame me for it. They should have been separate. The retirement should have been separate from from the resignation. In the event that there would have been some dissension or whatever regarding whatever liquidated damages or rehireable or not rehireable,
Okay.
so they should have been separate.
Okay.
All right? And it was my fault. Of course, I'm gonna admit it, all right? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Bray?
Mr.
Yes.
Brain, if I may, we have some employees that were just hired, if we could have them introduce themselves?
I see you've got an aide out there too, in that lady's arms. Is that a instructional aide?
Yes.
Go ahead, go ahead and
Okay.
do what you need to do.
So those that were just hired, if you'll come up and present yourselves?
My name is Marlon Gonzalez, Douglas native, a few familiar faces. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to giving back to the district that gave so much to me.
What
Thank you.
position are you?
Security.
Thank you.
We
Thank
know
you
you'll
very
do a
much.
good job.
Great.
My name is Enrique Villacaña, and I'm glad to be joining this team for the Douglas Unified School, and I'll be also working as security.
Very good, very good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much and welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else, Denise?
That's it.
All right, did, you had that approval on?
Yes.
Item E, discussion action on the approval of volunteers. Ms. Cox?
As presented, and the background information is also there.
Okay,
Move to approve the volunteers.
Second.
how many volunteers are there? Do you regulate the amount of volunteers in any given sport? I mean, how many coaches can you have? I'm just really asking. Do you have a limit as to how many you can have in any particular sport?
So there is no limit that I'm aware of, and so this is done through the athletic department where they hire the coaches and they approve volunteers for each team.
How many football coaches do you have, Melissa?
Well, we have, I think there's 4 paid and then the rest are volunteers.
How many are the volunteers? That's all right.
Around 6 or 7.
Wow.
There's a limit on coaches and assistant coaches, just there's no limit on
Volunteers.
volunteers. So we do have allocated in the budget this many.
No, I understand that, because
Okay.
you budget
Yeah.
for head, but I was just wondering, how many coaches can you put out there? You've got 7, Melissa, for football?
Well, remember, they're not just for varsity, they volunteer for JV.
Oh, okay, all the way down.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. All right, thanks for that clarification. Go ahead.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
yes,
Mr. Bray?
Yes, item F, discussion action on the approval of donations received from the, for the Douglas Unified School District number 27. Ms. Cox?
As presented, this is donors choose.
Any, Mr. Lindemann, let's get this on
I
the
move
floor.
to approve the donations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Members of the board, do you have any questions regarding the donations? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
yes.
Mr. Bray?
Yes, item G, discussion action on the
Mr.
approval.
President,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to, can we move J up in front of G, because the young lady here has a child she's taking care of, and that's, she's here for J.
Oh, okay.
What item is it?
J. The Eastman,
Yeah.
correct. J.
Right, okay. Who's gonna present that?
I can present, and she's gonna be here, she's here for questions, if you guys have any questions.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Again, this is a request from the city of Douglas. As you know, the land where the aquatic center is built, it belongs to the school district. So now there's a project that is going to be funded from APS, that it's about solar panels in the parking lot. And I believe there's 3 other sites, but this specifically needs the permission of the school district because, again, it's in district property, to actually allow them to put those up, those.
And Mr. President, I would need to recuse myself on this item.
Okay, a member of the council, right?
Yes.
So he would have a,
I have a conflict.
just recuse yourself.
Okay.
You can't advocate for one thing and advocate for another because you would be inherently advocating against the thing that you, blah, blah, anyway. All right, thank you for that, Mr. Lindeman. So we'll make a record that he recused himself. Can I get a motion, Ms. Saltel?
Yes. I move that we approve the easement grant access for the Aquatic Center for the City of Douglas for APS Solar Communities Program Project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. All right, now discussion. All right, go ahead.
Again, just the
Members
the
of the
broad
board.
explanation. I don't know if Daritza
Members of the
has
board, any
something to
questions,
say or
clarification
any
of-
questions for her.
Oh, really?
You know, to get out of here in a hurry, that's a good mechanism. You bring a good-looking guy like that in here,
It's been so good.
and then we're not gonna keep you very long in deference to that little boy, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Good evening, President Breen and members of the board. So the APS Solar Communities Program is a parking structure where solar panels will be placed on top. The build party is the one that gets the credit for it, so in this case, it would be the city of Douglas. It adds covered parking, but since the school district are the landowners, we do need you to grant the easement. The one caveat is that APS requires you to express the intent to grant the easement, because they will not actually have the easement until they do the design. And they can't do the design until you give them permission through the expression of the intent to grant the easement in the future. So it's a little tricky. We're doing it at the city next week during the council meeting as well. So it's a little weird, but yeah.
Okay,
It's for good cause.
for the record, would you give your name and your position?
yeah.
You're with the
So
city.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
My
go
name
ahead.
is Daritza Villalobos. I'm the grants coordinator for the city of Douglas.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Members of the board, do you have any questions regarding that?
Does
you
the
in a hurry?
motion that we made provide the intent that you're looking for?
No, I think you'll have to redo that. Yeah.
That was my only question.
Ms. Salchow, did you have a question?
No.
Mr. Ramos? Okay, and I don't guess you have any comments that you want to make? What's it going to do to, what's the main thing that'll happen with the district? Just the removal of those trees?
Right, and at this point, I don't know if that's something that we can have a conversation about, if the city can just remove them for that. But I'm concerned about Daritza saying that the way the motion was done is not good enough for that
So-
intent.
I think, I'm not sure how the school board works, but it would just be the clarification. I didn't put that in the letter. So it's not the easement just yet. The easement won't be available until they complete the design.
So then you're gonna bring that back
So,
to
yeah.
us for approval when that easement is ready to be done.
Yeah, so
well,
it would
so-
just be you needing to grant APS the intent for a future easement. And then once they do the easement, it would be granting the actual easement.
And let me ask you this, and I know you probably want to get home with that little boy. Was the language on the way it was posted correct and the motion wasn't correct? Is that what you're saying? Because it says discussion action on the approval of granting easement access to the Aquatic Center parking lot to the City of Douglas for APS Solar Committee's program project. So if that language were the motion, would that suffice to give you the authority you need to do what you need to do?
I believe so. We would just have to send you the agreement.
Okay, so, but I
then
wanna
they'll
make
send you
sure,
the easement.
I wanna make sure that, was the motion stated correctly? Because she stated the motion exactly the way it's posted.
Yes.
Okay.
So and again, I don't know what the rules are for the school board if your meeting laws are gonna have to change the way that it was put on the agenda.
Well,
Because this first step is the intent to grant an easement.
well,
And then the future, once they actually have the easement, it would be granting the easement.
I think that the language where it specifically states in the motion that you're gonna be granted access.
Yeah.
So when the legal people look at things like this for us, they tell us, and they look at I think it's a memorandum of understanding we have with you regarding that building.
Yeah.
So they know exactly what all of the intricacies are there, right? So if they told us that this would grant you all the authority you need to do whatever you need, then I'm sure you're okay.
Okay.
Okay?
Just wanna make sure.
And I appreciate the fact that you want to be careful so you don't have to come back. All right? All right, so we have the motion on the floor.
Yes, sir.
Right? Do you have anything else that you want us to do, or you feel we need to do?
I don't think so, unless you guys wanted to discuss the tree removal, if that was a concern.
Okay, I have a question. Who did the trees belong to? The ground belongs to us. Who planted the trees?
I don't know. That's a very good question.
I mean, if it's the city's trees, city should take them out, not the district.
Well,
We
I
can-
think,
We can
excuse
definitely
me.
remove and replant them somewhere else.
Yeah, the important thing is that this board gave you access to do it. You got access to the easement. Then all of those other things, of course, we want to know, but those will be worked out administratively. However, we don't need to say, and you will remove the trees and all those you guys work that out. Okay. Is that good?
Yep.
All right. Members of the board, any other questions or comments regarding that? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. Have a good night.
Item G, discussion action on the approval of the governing board self-evaluation. Let's get a motion on the floor and then we'll discuss it.
I move to approve the governing board self-evaluation.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Smith. Members of the board, we do this annually, and the only thing, you get to see the data after it's compiled. And if there's anything that you want to discuss regarding any of those different points, then now would be the time to do it. If not, then we'll vote on it. Mr.
I'm
Smith?
having, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I had nothing.
Oh, no, he was shaking his head no. Mr. Linneman?
Oh, there it is. I was having trouble finding it on my,
While he's looking for it, Ms. Salchow, do you have any comments, questions
No, I
on our
don't.
evaluation? Mr. Ramos?
No.
yeah, I got it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Under the significant accomplishments by the school this year, I wanted to point out that we did give significant pay raises to our employees, and I think that's always needed. You know, we've got all these other extenuating circumstances, you know, that affect everyone. And so I was happy to do that. And then we are working diligently with our new construction, and you know, by the time we get that all done, it'll be a glorious 16 classrooms. So I think that'll be a very needed improvement to our school. So, thank you.
Jana?
No.
All right, I guess, like the Congress and everybody else, we gave ourselves a good evaluation, right?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes. I don't know how they're gonna, what kind of evaluation they'll give themselves after this afternoon, but, item H, discussion action pursuant to policy BGF to temporarily suspend policy BGB, requiring 2 readings of the proposed policy prior to approval of the adoption in order to approve policy GCBC immediately upon the first reading. Mr. Lindeman.
I move to approve item in H in its entirety.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Salchow. Discussion. You want to discuss what we're doing, what it is, Denise?
Yes, so for policy GCBC, the policy remains the way it was, except that we are adding, upon governing board approval, the employee will have 5 working days to accept the recommendation as determined by the superintendent. And this is in regards to coaches, to extracurricular activities. So once the season is over, we'll be able to issue something and not wait until the end of the year.
Okay, members of the board, any questions or discussion regarding that?
I think that this would clarify some of the questions that we had earlier when we were talking about this, and I think this is good.
And of course, the 5 days don't start running until the board approves it.
Of course.
Okay,
Yes.
just for clarification.
Yes.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes?
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Bering?
Yes, item I, discussion, information on the emergency procurement purchase of 2 new white activity buses from National Bus Sales pursuant to policy DGE-R, which is a regulation, and AAC R7-2-1055. Mr. Soto.
Again, as discussed in the past, there's been changes on the law, transportation law, about vans. So the district is, there's none available locally here within the state, or any company that it's under state or corporate contract here in the state. There's the intent, if we want to go that route, we will have to do appeal and put appeal in place with them to get on the list, and then potentially within a year or more than a year, we'll get a bus. What the purchase of these white activity minibuses do is to help out on the extracurricular activities that require transportation. The fact that we're getting these 2 white activity buses is because they don't require a CDL to drive. Again, the reason that they're white is because they're only for extracurricular. They can be used for student transportation, but we cannot claim the miles because they're white. So the reason why the superintendent approved the emergency purchase is because, again, there's no availability within the state, and this is the only company that has them available there in Oklahoma. So the goal is to finalize the purchase and then send somebody to pick them up, because, again, the cost of them shipping and delivering is going to be a lot more than if we just go pick them up. Is there a specific question that you have?
Well,
in regards?
I think it's important you tell the board what the emergency procedure is so that we have a full understanding, is that you and the superintendent, your sole source, she's emergency by policy and law. And it's there, and if you give the proper documentation, board members, what you have, and you see the letter
Right.
there from Anna, that says that she's exercising her authority not only under the policy, but under state procurement rules to make that emergency purchase without approval of the board per se, all right? Because of the circumstances and all of the backup information that was given there. You've got a letter in there from the Transportation Director, Robert Rodriguez, which very clearly delineates the reasons for the need of an emergency and why it's important and in our best interest to buy them. That's all part of the mandatory backup to do an emergency purchase. All right? Any questions? Do I have a motion?
No, sir,
No.
it's information only.
Pardon?
It's information only.
Well, that's right, because
It's
that,
information.
I
because
have
it's
a
already
couple
been
of
made.
questions.
Go ahead,
So
Mr.
you're wanting to purchase 2 more of the white vans. Are they similar or just like the ones that we use, say, at the pick game whenever we would have the field dedication? I know we had 3 white vans.
Those are
that-
just regular vans. What we're purchasing is activity mini buses.
What is the difference?
it's bigger. Think about a school bus, but shorter.
If I remember right, those vans that we rode in, they would cover 11 to 15 people or something like that.
Right.
Correct? And
Correct.
how big are the ones that you are ordering, the activity vans?
The activity seats 14. Robert, is that 14 students or 14 people overall? 15 with the driver. So again, with the new law, that's what they're saying, that we cannot utilize vans that seat 15 passengers. But again, it comes back to the size and the safety and the security of, yeah.
Please.
Mr.
Yeah, Robert, come up here, because we're gonna have some questions about a couple of things.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members. Okay, so just to clarify on your question right now, the state passed a law to where we are no longer, whether it's charter, whether it's regular school district, public school district, we cannot use a van that is 11 or more passengers due to the structure of it. It's not safe. Federal guidelines passed this ruling. They've had it in play. The state has now mandated it, I guess you can say. It has hurt us tremendously, not using these. We would send, earlier, like you said, the cheerleaders in those. A lot of activities, HOSA, DECA. So now we're being forced to use our buses for that. So by law, the mini buses, mini activity buses, we can use for activities such as athletics or club events. We cannot use those to and from school and get paid miles on those.
So the white vans that they used during the pit game to transport the family for the dedication, were those activity buses?
Those were our
White
old
buses.
activity vans. Those are the ones that we
Activity vans.
used before.
So we have
So
3
now-
of those.
Yes, so now
We
we
need
can
2
use
more.
those as, we cannot transport students in those. Myself, you can travel in those, but we cannot provide transportation anywhere for students in those vehicles.
How does that SB 1630 come into play with that? Where it specifically enables the use of 11 to 15 passenger vehicles in pupil transportation?
That's exactly what those vans are. So the vans are eliminated by that SB law.
No, they enable.
No,
And it's what it says right here.
I understand that.
Enables.
I understand that, but did you give the other one, the breakdown of what is allowed and what's not allowed to the state of
It's
Arizona?
attached.
You should have another
Yeah,
another
it's
one there.
attached on the
That's why I'm sitting there saying
Exactly,
this.
and you know what, I go through that same thing.
This one
This
that
was
was-
passed by the governor last year. There's a lot of gray areas in it. That says we can, but if you look at that other outlining thing, it says we cannot use them, and that is the breakdown that the state sent to us.
So it is kind of confusing to me because I know this was signed by the governor saying that it was specifically to enable 11 to 15-year passenger vehicles for pupil transportation. But we're being told that we're having to buy new ones that are just like the 3 that we've already got.
The
Because
new
they
ones that
can't
we're,
be used.
the new ones that we're purchasing they meet the standards of a bus by law. They meet the minimum standards of a bus.
So they're bigger than those vans. They're the size of a bus, but they're not painted yellow.
Exactly.
Okay.
There you go.
I mean, all right.
And in 7 years, anything that is white will have to be painted yellow, and all of them will have to meet those standards of a school bus.
In 4 years.
In 4 years, in 27.
27.
In 27.
Correct.
You know, and Robert, I think you'll agree, there's so many gray areas that, and we know that people in higher places are looking at opinions to see exactly legally what we can and we can't do. And there should be a legal opinion coming out soon. And then whatever, it'll go to the Attorney General's office, whatever she says, then that's what we live by and it'll be legal.
Yes.
As far as the governor signing it, the governor was just saying, I'm glad that you guys are getting it, but then he's lost. Then ADOT and all of these other regulatory agencies come into play, and the governor has nothing to say about it, because he can't supersede anything that's already in statute. The governor just says, here, you can use these now, and that's great, but then, once it's out of his hands, once he signs it, then ADOT and all the other regulatory agencies come into play.
Yes, and according to the trust, I reached out to them, and their recommendation is to highly not use the vans if you want to stay in compliance. That was the exact wording that I received from him. So that's what I passed on to, Mrs. Samaniego and Mr. Soto, and that's why we started looking for other alternatives to help us out. The vans, like I said, we heavily relied on them in the past. If you want to go miles-wise, I think last year we did approximately on all the vans, we probably did 47,000 miles.
And I know this was for information only and everything. I'm just wondering, to me, I know that, the SB 1630 was sent to the lawyers to look at it and everything else. We're investing a bunch of money, and then I would hate for the lawyers to come back a week after we've spent it and said, oh, yeah, you can use these vans after all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe they need to have the lawyers step up and make a decision and find out what can or can't be done and clarify some of those gray areas.
Well, that's what I don't know about ASBO, but these other agencies like ASBA and in the Department of Education as well because it affects every school district.
Sure.
Collaboratively, they'll get an opinion. But Robert is doing now what's practical, and you're going with the best information you have now, right?
Yes, what has been provided to me from multiple sources, this is the best route we can go. Like I said, this is coming from, like you said, Arizona DPS. They're working on bylaws for the vans stating we can't do it. I spoke with the officer that does our inspections on our buses. He says, don't do it. We know there's other school districts that are doing that are still using them because they're in a hard place as well. Me personally, I don't want to put our district, myself, at risk if something was to happen and our insurance, the trust comes back and says, we're not covering it. It states it in the law right there that you can't use those, so.
Yeah, that's why you're safe in going with the best information you have, and cautious is the best route to go for right now.
Yes, sir.
All right, now, any other questions?
I
regarding
just
that?
want to ask Robert a little bit more clarification for me on the vans that we have right now. I understand we have 3 new vans.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how are we going to utilize those vans in the future?
So, we discussed if teachers have a conference out of town, administration has conferences out of town, we can still use those for those purposes. We just cannot, like I said before, we just cannot use them to provide transportation for students.
Okay, so that's going to be the use.
Yes.
And I also read there that to upgrade those could be upgraded to be able to use for transportation for that?
As of right now, there's nobody that I know of that's making those modifications. We're probably looking at, you're probably gonna purchase another new vehicle for the price that they're gonna cost for that. By the time they do the suspension, the tires, your stop arm, your stop lights, they would have to redo the ceiling to where it's structurally sound. If there was a rollover, it doesn't cave in. Those type of modifications they would have to do, so.
Okay.
Robert, those vans, those 3 he's referring to, and the ones that Mr. Smith talked about, it's the same one that we had the night that, those are originally bought for transportation of students, right?
Those were.
Yeah, so the district's got 3 brand-new vans that they're not practical now because they can't be used for student transportation. Now, I've talked to Mr. Soto and Ana, Ms. Samaniego, would it behoove the district to look at some type of a trade on those vans? Because if you can't retrofit them, which now is gonna be one of the questions, right? Then what good are they gonna be to the district? I mean, if you said, well, teachers can take, but how often is that gonna happen? I mean, taking those big vans, I mean, they're very nice, but they're gonna be an albatross.
Yeah, and you're 100% correct on that. It's something that we've discussed that as well, of what we can trade those in for. I believe we put them on we're not gonna get money if we try to sell them just, at an auction, what they're worth. Something we can definitely look into further of what we can trade in and try to get something out of it, try to recover some money from that. But like I said, that's something that we're gonna have to really look into and what we can do for that purpose. Maybe just keeping one and try getting rid of the other two. I know the maintenance department and IT is gonna take over the older vans that we had for the 15 passengers. We're gonna make that transition to where they're able to maybe get rid of the older vehicles that we have on the street still and give them something newer.
Now, I know that state purchasing doesn't take trade-ins,
No.
but what about the dealers that are on, do they, like O'Reilly and all those, will they consider a trade?
We've never done that before, so it's definitely something that we need to look into.
Okay.
But again, all of these vehicles were purchased under a state contract, so, I mean, it's, I honestly don't have an answer for that, if that's something that we can just trade them. It will be nice, like Robert says, that if we can just trade and get another kind of vehicle for the fleet or.
Okay, before you go, Robert, do you have anything else you want to add regarding this conversation or anything else regarding the other topic we talked about transportation? That you were sitting out there listening and you say, oh, no, do you want to add anything or inform the board about anything?
No, I think everybody's pretty much informed how shorthanded we are with our transportation department. We took 2 steps forward in the beginning of the year, but now we're 3 steps back again. So I had a driver resign 2 weeks ago. I have another driver that's retiring tomorrow. Will be his last day. We just got one gentleman. He's got his certification just this past Monday, I mean. And then we are training another driver as we're speaking. We're trying to catch up. It just, it's really tough right now in the situation we are in, but we're doing our best. We're providing as much as we can to those that are in need of it. The cheer, I understand that. I think they missed 2 away games that was due to a transportation. The other one was, Mrs. Bayardo said that not to worry about it because she wasn't here that day anyway, so we didn't have to worry about that game. So we are trying to get there. We are trying to move in that right direction. It's just going to take us a little bit of time, and hopefully everybody can just bear with us. And then to clarify on the Saturday trip for the swim meet, I don't know if it was scheduled on an AIA schedule. I don't know. But on my schedule, there was nothing there. And I didn't know about it until 5:45 Saturday morning. By that time, there's no way I can find anybody to take that trip, so just wanted to clarify that.
Well, it's ironic, but it's okay for you to talk about that because the board couldn't respond what he was saying, but you sat out there and you heard what he said.
Yes.
And so you can, as part of your overall function out there, you can talk to the board. And not that I'm trying to circumvent any open meeting or anything, but you said that you weren't aware of the situation, one of the ones that he mentioned, until later, and it was already over. But were any of the things that he was mentioning, were they specifically tied to any of your transportation problems?
The only one that would be the cheerleading. The Friday nights, the 2 buses out of town. Like I said, we were on the right path, and then we had some resign, and then one's retiring. My main focus is the transportation, the whole thing, but we need to get kids to school, right? That should be our number one priority, is to get the kids to school. We haven't fell short on that. Every day they're there to school. They have bus routes. Believe me, I'm the biggest sports advocate there is probably in this community. And we're doing the best we can. And just sometimes we just can't do it. Like I said, we're trying. We're gonna get there. We will get there, but at this time, at this moment in time, we're between a rock and a hard spot. We really are in our transportation. And it's happened throughout, not just all the other states, but in Arizona, and it just kind of made its way here, and we're starting to feel what the bigger cities feel like with their shortage of bus drivers. You know, me being short 2 drivers is like TUSD being short 80 drivers. You know, that's basically, if you think about it, put in a picture, that's where we're at right now.
Were any of those references that he made, and I think you mentioned it a minute ago, were they AIA functions, or were those outside of that parameter?
To be honest with you, I don't know if that meet was an AIA sanctioned event, and I'm not here to
Okay.
try
Well,
to
we'll get
answer
it
that
out.
question. I just know on my end, there was nothing on that schedule for me to schedule a bus.
Okay, well, you know, as we mentioned earlier, we'll have a full report from the high school to them, and then we'll bring it back and we'll
Yeah.
address that. Members of the board, any
I
other
do.
questions for our, go ahead.
I
Ms.
do.
Sosa.
How many Suburbans do we have in our fleet?
One. And
Is
it's
that
in
the one with
It's in the
CTE?
shop right now. Yeah, that's in CTE.
Okay. Now, and a Suburban can transport about 8 students,
About 8 students.
and those would not fall under the same requirements. They're more of a
No. So
car vehicle?
it is considered a car vehicle, I guess you can
Okay.
say. So it's a car, a sedan, an SUV, big Suburbans, like you said, and minivans. That's what compiles into that,
And minivans.
yeah, the 9 passenger or less.
Okay. And the next was, I was gonna ask Cesar, excuse me, Mr. Soto. What funding source was used to purchase these?
Capital.
Capital.
610,
Okay.
correct.
Okay,
Okay.
members of the board, any,
I
go ahead,
wanna-
Mr. Stay up
Were the
there.
parents advised, or will they be advised of the situation that happened, and what, probably we're still gonna have some more issues, that why transportation is not being provided? Because I was contacted about a cheerleading team that wasn't able to go up with the high school because there were no vans available. And at the time, I didn't know the situation because we hadn't been advised yet. But now I can understand why they didn't have a van to go up there. So, but are parents being notified about this?
Mrs. Rodriguez.
So all the coaches are aware, and actually all of the high school staff is aware, because this doesn't just impact the athletics, it obviously impacts all, our clubs, or for that matter, anyone planning a trip with students. So I know that we send out that information to all of our coaches. Now, whether or not they have, given that information to their, parents, I don't know. I'd have to go back and find out. But it's not just the high school, I know. All of us were informed of these changes as well.
Because it would be kind of nice for the parents to know, so they wouldn't have such a bad feeling about what's going on, you know?
Yeah, and like I said, like Mrs. Rodriguez said, I sent an email out a couple weeks ago letting them know what we're facing, how we're trying to handle the situation, and please, you know, be patient with us, work with us. We're gonna try to accommodate as much as we can, and we have. The month of September, we did 55 trips. I did 55 trips with 4 drivers. So we are doing the best we can. We are still moving them. We're still doing the transportation thing. It's just, unfortunately, there's times that we're not gonna be able to accommodate.
Okay, and we've allowed this much discussion
just
on
have
that because it has to do with, it has to do with buses and transportation, and it's important, so go ahead.
Just one little question.
Yeah.
Approximately how many students travel to football games? And do we take one or two buses?
We take one bus, anywhere between 35 to 56 people that load the bus.
Okay.
And then the coaches take a van as well.
I wondered if they were still taking a van.
Yes.
Okay, and that includes their equipment and everything? We don't send anything extra for their equipment, like
No.
a bus or anything?
No, that is
Okay.
it.
That's all.
Okay, one last question, Robert, and really appreciate your being here because your information is important. We had a discussion in looking at some of the procurement things recently. And speaking of buses, it came up in the conversation that there was a need for a yellow bus. And that I believe was needed in, for,
Mainly ESS.
Yeah.
Right.
are you familiar with the need of that bus?
Yes.
And it's painted yellow, and isn't it funny that you have to get into now worry about whether it's white or it's yellow or whatever? But
So basically what we're looking at is to purchase, we'd like to purchase 4, and they're gonna be the same style as the white activity bus, but they will be painted yellow. Those still do not require a CDL. Okay, those will still, you have to go through the training process. You have to do your MAP 21 program, you have to do your minimum standards, you have to do behind the wheel, you have to do your pre-trip inspection, and then you'll have to still do refresher training every 2 years. You'll have to do your drug screening once a year and your random. These are things we're going to. It'll help us out in the long run. Yellows, when it comes to activity buses, this is a tricky thing, and you talk about gray areas, right? If you get them yellow, you can use them for student transportation and activities. If they're white, they can only be activity. So like Mr. Soto and I said earlier, within 4 years with the white vans white mini buses that we're purchasing, or hopefully we can purchase, those will have to be converted to a yellow. And that would be stop arm and 8-way lights on it. That's the difference by law.
Okay, so, but that one bus that you were talking about, that it's available in Oklahoma, the same place?
Yeah, the same
where
place.
It's at the same place, yes.
You're familiar with that? If, just from what I know from the information in discussing procurement and emergency purchases and sole sources and things like that, if that's available and it's a sole source, and if you work with him, because of all of this conversation regarding all of the importance of, it's funny and interesting how the times change about how that becomes a focal point, that maybe at the next meeting, if the board, thinks that it's appropriate and you bring that back, that's a necessity, that yellow bus, the one we were discussing, and one you're aware of, obviously, then maybe we can put that on as a purchase, maybe at a future meeting, okay?
Yes, that'd be
Okay,
wonderful.
and again, we understand the importance of transportation now. I mean, it from drivers to vehicles now, to the color of them, and all of those kinds of things. So, thanks, Robert, and thanks for all the work you do out there. I know it's probably mind-boggling right now.
It is definitely a struggle, but
Yeah.
appreciate you guys, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Okay. We're,
We're
No,
down to K, I think, yeah.
We're in letter K.
no, that
Last
was for, he just was that was just clarification. All right, so, we're gonna move then to, K.
Yes.
And, members of the board, again, I don't wanna be late, but do you have any other questions regarding that transportation? Mr. Smith, I know you had a lot of them in your interpretation, and then I think one of the other board members mentioned to me that some people were upset,
Yes.
Mr. Ramos. And then, of course, Mr. Duarte comes in here and says that, people are upset. So again, it's on the front burner. So well, we got Robert here. Do you have any other questions or?
Well, I just wanted to ask Mr. Soto then, if in a few years we're gonna have to have yellow, are we able to just get yellow and not white?
The challenge we have now, especially if we're going with the white one, is the training. I mean, we will have to train all of these people to actually drive the yellow minibuses. What we have now is the ability of use them for extracurricular, not requiring the training, not requiring the CDL, so coaches and teachers can take the kids to extracurricular activities. Again, this is just giving us some time to train people that actually can drive those yellow buses. That's why we're looking at potentially buying the 2 whites and 1 yellow that we can, start working on training the drivers.
Cesar, and you're saying training the drivers. Is it hard to get people to want to take the job? Bus drivers, or what's happened?
For bus drivers, yeah. I mean, again, it's not you just have to have your CDL. They come with the CDL, but now they have to take the training for bus driving, the school bus driving, and pass that test and all of that. The challenge here by having these yellow minibuses will be, okay, you're gonna have to train as a CDL driver, but you're just not gonna have the CDL license. Most of the ones that we have for ESS, they're IAs. Do you think those people are going to be willing to take all that training just to be able to drive those? So that's why we want to start slow, transitioning to eventually get there and have those for people to get trained and then be able to drive those yellow ones.
Okay, we're gonna leave it there because we got a little bit far stream, but it's okay because it all has to do with buses and transportation, which was permitted under that item. And as far as I was concerned, it had to do everything with everything the board discussed, but we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves there. So we're gonna move to item K, discussion action on the approval of recruitment stipends for certified staff. Ms. Cox.
Yes, as presented, except that I would like to remove the 4th person from the 2nd row
Okay.
column.
The 4th person, the 2nd row
On the right.
with the initials BN?
Yes.
Okay. Members of the board? So the motion will be all inclusive with the exception of that person?
Yes.
Okay? All right. Anything else you want to offer
No,
at this point?
As presented.
Okay, Mr. Lindeman?
I move to approve the recruitment stipends for certified staff with the exception of the 4th person. Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Selchow. Okay, members of the board, now, any further information you want to give regarding that?
So these are teachers who have already started. It's mainly our H1 and J1 teachers who were not here at the beginning, are now arriving, and so we still have a couple who we're waiting for.
Okay, members of the board, discussion regarding any part of that?
When do they receive this?
So they will receive it when they sign their contract.
Okay, so, if we give them, but they sign the contract, let's say back in May, they got this in May?
Oh, no,
Okay.
no.
So
So
it'd
for
be
this
like
current school
it's
year.
For this.
For this
quarter,
current
okay.
school year.
And also, if they've worked in the district for a month, they automatically get that 2,000?
Because it's a recruitment stipend, so it's like a sign-on bonus.
Further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Selcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Burrington?
Yes, item 4A, announcements, Ms. Cox.
So, we have the end of the quarter this Friday. It is an early release day. Grades will close for students and teachers Friday and will be posted next week. Columbus Day is October 9th, so all schools and offices will be closed. Next week is fall break, and then our next regular board meeting is scheduled for November 7th.
And, but we're looking, again, we're looking at a special meeting sometime this week. Entertain a motion to adjourn
Move to adjourn.
by Mr. Lindeman, second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.